Yeah. I kind of I wasn't sure how it would roll, but it's gone okay.
Uh,
Of course, the big question is next week. We'll see what happens.
oh, Victoria.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've got a few people.
Yeah. I'm just herding them all together. I got Nick Farr's notes and stuff today.
Right.
So I've got everything to handle that side of it. And yeah, we'll see how it rolls.
where's here in the States, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having way too much of a good time.
Yeah. I sort of feel like we're cheating because Di and I were at Sophie's kitchen table just a couple of weeks ago doing this.
Oh.
With a head start on everyone.
We did exactly this, well, more or less this.
More or less this
roundup.
Let me see if I can persuade Sophie to.
She's on. I can see her. There she is.
Hello.
We're
Oh,
back.
Hello. We were doing
Not
this
yet.
a while ago.
Hey, Matt.
How you doing?
All right. Sorry, I was sitting there at your lovely kitchen table with my wife Diane just a couple of weeks ago doing this tasting.
I heard that.
Done a great job on the house. It's fantastic.
Thanks for that.
Might blur our background.
Anyway, whilst you're awake, Robert, better get you going.
Yeah.
I think,
It is actually midnight here, but
well, it's not too bad, but you guys are in the thick of things, so I'm sorry to keep you up awake. I think during COVID, the worst was 3 a.m. for somebody in Napa, and the guy didn't even live at the winery. For some reason, he thought he'd better drive to the winery to do the tasting. So he was up at 2 and got home at 4. We weren't very popular.
wow, that's
I did a board meeting that started at 11 and finished at 5 once.
Oh, jeez. I'm no good in board meetings.
Well, the problem is I did so much coffee that I ended up having so much Amaro afterwards to try and get back to sleep.
Well, and predictably, we've sold out to 16 homes. Most people with the travel and what have you, it's quite hard to get people pinned down. But the response has been really good from people who aren't in Singapore tonight. So it's I mean, for future tastings, we want to focus on that because they can get to taste it. There's one bloke gets back at 8 o'clock tonight from South Korea, and I said, no, the wines will be fine at 10 o'clock. Just get back and watch back. So I've recorded it. So maybe we can kick off. I'm super excited to look at this Annandale Riesling. I don't think I've tasted your Rieslings before, just doing a bit of research. It's a cabinet style, so what percentage sugar are we looking at?
yeah, no, great. Yeah, we were really excited by the Riesling as well. So it's actually about between 27 and 30 grams. So the 2023 vintage is about 28 grams per litre, but it's got plenty of natural acidity. So you will find that it has that beautiful flush of sweetness at the start, but it finishes really dry and minerally. So
Yeah, and we aim for about 9% alcohol.
Okay.
It believe it or not, it has to be above 8.50 to be legal in the EU.
Really? So if it's lower, what are they? It's fizzy pop or something?
It's not called wine. You're not allowed to export there, and it's crazy because of course the Germans make wines lower than that.
Of course, yeah.
I think it's called a non-tariff trade barrier.
I think what I love about it, you're talking about that fruit. There's an element of fruitness that goes all the way through it, which is so fresh and vibrant and present. And not a lot of Rieslings lend that kind of element to it. And the sweetness is beautifully balanced. There's nothing that's kind of out of place. It all seems to come together in a really, really cool way. I really enjoy it. Is this now one of your? I think I was doing the research this Arvo. You have 9 permanent vineyards. I think there's more than that.
Yeah,
Is it only 9?
depends on the year, but yeah,
Oh,
nine kind of yeah, a steady 9, and then if we're someone we know we're hopeless, we can't help ourselves sometimes, and get offered a beautiful parcel, then we're
got
It's
it.
owned by friends of ours we've known for about 25 years.
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's also a very important part of the style as well as where it's from. So Blind River is the sub-region. It's very coastal. It's actually one of the coolest and driest parts of all of Marlborough. And there's some really interesting soils there too. So it's got quite a lot of it's silts predominantly, but there's also some interesting kind of sedimentary uplift that has occurred in that area from the fault line, one of the many fault lines we have in Marlborough. So yeah, I think that also it is an attribute of why the style is what it is, and that kind of minerally freshness that you get.
Yeah, it's just a wave of freshness. I really love that. Thinking of many other Rieslings further south from you that lean more into the minerality and less of the fruit component. This seems to have the best of both worlds to it. It's wonderful. I really love it. What do you think about maturation and ongoing maturation path for it?
Look, we've made that style here now for quite a while. I actually made it for a winemaking client back in the early 2000s, and those wines age incredibly well. In fact, a few times I bought the old ones out. I bought a 2013 actually blank canvas out for a couple of MWs. One of which is beside me, and served it blind, and of course they all went Germany.
I love it.
Yeah, they do age well, but this is one of the few places in the world where you can get that natural balance of acidity. Yeah, I've learned quite a lot about the balance, and there are 3 things that are important. If you got low alcohol, you've got to have some sugar or it tastes watery. If you've got sugar, you've got to have acidity.
Yeah.
So you can't do this in a warm climate. It has to be cool.
I was just thinking that this wine, just a second ago, if this wine didn't have the sugar, it would be a huge chunk of the jigsaw missing. It just would not have the character that it has. As a shady wine salesman, it's almost impossible for me to sell sweet Riesling, but I can sell balanced Riesling. For some reason, when you don't talk about the sugar and you just pour it for people, they think, oh shit, that's great, especially in a food context, it sells. But I never go on about the cabinet style too much, certainly in terms of our demographic here on the island. It's certainly a challenging one to sell to many sectors of the.
Yeah, it's like trying to sell Nick Cave music, right?
Yeah.
You've got to fascinated by it, but they don't really want to try it until you shove it in their faces.
Yeah, you got to be in the mosh pit to buy into it.
Yeah, no, indeed. We always talk about it, in terms of that, if people go, gosh, that's a lot of sugar. And we say, well, actually, it's the same level of residual sugar as a lemon. And you don't think of lemon being sweet.
Really?
And
That's
because
brilliant.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant analogy. Definitely. Then I guess onto your star child of the year, the Sauvignon Blanc. It's been amazing. We have a number of people. It's always a good litmus test when the wholesalers respond to our newsletters. And when we first sent our first note out on this wine, I think I had 7 or 8 resellers trying to purchase the wine from us, everything that we had straight away. And so I went against my better judgment, which is just to sell whatever's available on the day and keep it for our clients. And I think it ended up being the right thing, because we've got this into the hands of so many people this year. It was quite interesting. I don't know how far ahead of the award announcement it was that when you told us it was going to get the award, but I started getting peaks, spurts of interest about 6 to 8 weeks ahead, which was really interesting. The Jungle Telegraph must have gone out super early as to the award. So I thought, oh, something's coming. And then, of course, you told us, and then it explained why there was so much interest.
Yeah. It's I think it's kind of it's building too, because it's obviously, you know, we've been producing that Sauvignon now since 2016 was our first vintage, and it's right off the bat, you know, we always knew that vineyard's a really special vineyard. It's in one of the what we feel is kind of the Grand Cru area for Sauvignon here in Marlborough, just because of the style and the intensity that produces. And you know, so I think, yeah, there is starting to be a really good following for that wine, but of course, you know, scores help for each vintage. But no, it is good. I think it's just such a, you know, I think it's almost like a Swiss Army knife of Sauvignons, because it suits so many different types of foods, and we very rarely find someone who doesn't like it. Even the people who say, I don't really like Sauvignon, they generally like the style because it doesn't have the overt green notes. It's all about those beautiful
I was
tropical.
about to say it's more tropical than ever, guys. So you guys, you know, you're picking later in particular to get that style, or is this just what's coming off the site?
It's really interesting, Lou. That's the location. It does that in Dillon's Point, and it's an area I recognise back.
Oh, I went there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It just does that, and to me, there are two distinctive elements you find with that subregion. One is that wonderful tropical expression, and then on the palate you've got saltiness, and I think that combination
really clean
is special.
Yeah, but I think a big part of the style is also because the soils are so even in Dillon's Point, and I think if you look at the rest of the valley, you've got bands of gravel and clays and all sorts of kind of undulations, and so the vineyards, you know, obviously are a straight line, but across that straight line they've got varying soil types, which means you've got uneven ripeness in parts, and so obviously you can't go through, and you know, most people can't go through and harvest the little areas that are deemed ripe. You've just got to do it all in one hit when you think it's about right, and so because of that, you sometimes will get those greener notes in amongst the vineyard. But Dillon's Point, the soils are dead even across that whole area, so you've got that even ripeness and the long hang time because of the cooler sea breeze that comes off the ocean, and that cools things down in the summer. So it means that you actually get a longer period of fruit development, because the vineyards are some of the latest to be harvested in the region.
Some crunch, some ozone. There's so much going on. There's one of the banks, I'd say one of the Southern Hemisphere banks that we have as a client here in Singapore, and we have to have this all the time. And there's like the one time we were out of it, and I said, well, I'm sorry, what about X, Y, and Z as options? Said, no, we'll have a Gris. They're simply not interested in drinking anything except this wine. They're kind of obsessed with it. It's become a house pour. And you're right, Sophie, it's been a number of years where it's been a perceptible climb in terms of demand and following, which is such a wonderful thing to see at a time when New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc generally is not as in demand, certainly in our neck of the woods, as it might have been 5 years ago. It seems to me that what you're doing with Blanc Canvas is something that has it sits above that and is going to be constantly in demand, which is great for us.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point there, Robert. Something we feel very strongly about is there's let's say there's diversity in philosophies now in this region, and I think there are people who are thinking about the reputation and the people who aren't. And I think, you know, those shortcuts you take in production from vineyard right through, they add up to lesser wine. And I think it's something we feel very, very strongly about is actually getting it ripe and then gentle harvesting and then processing immediately, no skin contact. I think when you see a classic style and it's highly colored, it means it's skin contact.
Oh, okay.
And there's a penalty with that in terms of the texture, and you also lose those tropical aromatics as well.
There's a question from Hasheng. Your single vineyards appear to be spread out. Do you bring the grapes to one location for fermentation?
We do. And one of the best purchases that we have made, Sophie's going to laugh at me, but we bought a truck, and I got my HC license so I can drive it, because I think it's those things that you can take control of, and we've got to hand harvest nearly all of our grapes, and we've got to get into the winery when we need to get them there, and you just got to take control of all those things. We've got a handpick gang we'll work with for a long time, and we work close with them. They know we'll be back next year. We can't pick the grapes all ourselves. We need people for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that diversity of vineyard area as well is because you can't do all these varieties to the best they can be in Marlborough from one vineyard.
Yep.
You need different soil types. You need.
All right, we're not trying the abstract tonight because we're just simply, we didn't want to keep you up until 4 o'clock. But is the abstract fruit coming off the same type of soil? It's a different vineyard, right?
It is actually, but there's one difference. It's about 40 meters away.
Okay.
South. However, the soil type's the same, or near enough the same, but it's dry farmed, and it was dry farmed from the start. Whereas the classic Holdaway style, it does have potential to irrigate, and we did irrigate it in 24 because it was the driest year on record, and it needed a couple of drinks. But the other one's dry farmed, and the reason we've chosen that part of the vineyard for the abstract is because we think it needs a little more exposure, and by dry farming you get a little less vigor on the plant, so a little more exposed fruit.
All right, on to the Tano, which is a first time for us, and I think a first release for you guys, right? I'm so jazzed to see a Chablis style, and I know that's probably not the right word, but this leaner, less oak prevalent style coming from you in contrast to what else you're doing. So maybe you can walk us through your relationship with Tano and what brought it all together for you.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It's so exciting. We've been very emotionally invested in this project, and it's obviously been a number of years in the making. Matt can't help himself. He's so excited. He's going to have a glass of it. And
Always says better after midnight.
Exactly right. So it's dedicated to a friend of ours, and a winemaking colleague who was tragically taken too young, and he was a really amazing winemaker based in Soave, which is where we do a lot of our European work. Matt's been making wine there for 20 years, and his relationship with Tano had spanned all that time. So Tano was very much a mentor and a friend as well. And Tano was a larger-than-life character. He started off as a very skinny little young boy when he first started at the winery, and he liked his food, and he married Franca, and Franca cooked him beautiful hearty meals, and he was this larger-than-life incredible character, and he was very much a champion of the Crus of Soave. So he was all about identifying these special single vineyard sites within Soave and doing individual bottlings of them. And he also described Soave as being the Chablis of Italy, because of that fine wine kind of drive for what they were trying to do there. So it kind of just fell into our lap. This vineyard site, it's actually the same site that the Riesling comes from. So Blind River, again, it's you've got that sedimentary soil, and you've got really incredible natural acidity. Matt had tried years ago, before kind of blank canvas, with this vineyard site to do a Chardonnay in the reed style with this fruit, and it just didn't work. It was disastrous, wasn't it? It was thin and watery, and just the oak stuck out. But Matt and I have, over the years, we've really gained this deep admiration for Chablis, and spent far too much money on those wines. And we thought, well, actually, this fruit just fits in so nicely into that stylistic mold of Chablis. So we again got the wallets out and bought a really large 2,500 litre botty, or oak barrel,
big barrel,
but untoasted, so no toasting of the oak. It was new, but it's natural, and you stick your head in it, and it just smells like hazelnuts. It's just beautiful. And so, of course, the benchmark of Chablis is that grapefruit and hazelnut combination. and the fruit profile of this Chardonnay is absolutely just grapefruit to a T. But that natural acidity means that we can really make that style. So this has been several years now, and we not this is the month that we're launching it. So you're among the first to try it and for us to present it. So
Well, I think what's so amazing is the acidics. I can't find an equal in New Zealand with similar profoundly good acidity as the Chardonnay. I think it's really fantastic. What happens to that barrel, and how many vintages do you roll it over in its natural state?
Look, I think it'll be indefinite, really. It's got really thick staves, and it's built to last. I've just, in fact, about 10 minutes earlier, I answered a request from France about the third one we're buying and how we wanted it. So we've ordered the third one. So Sophie's a bit worried about that, but it's like, this had 15 months on lease. I'd like to get it to 18 months, which means we need 3.
Right. Okay.
But it's interesting. The acidity on this, the natural acidity is quite profound. This has been through full Malo. And I wanted it to go through Malo, but I didn't want it to taste at all of Malo.
Yeah.
Because what we do, we handpick it and we run this straight into this cuve with full cloudy juice, and we leave it and we let it ferment wild at natural temperatures. And then we leave it with no stirring on lees, and we come back, rack it and bottle it. So again, it's not filtered, but of course it goes through Malo. We don't add SO2 for about a year.
Wow.
And so all of those obvious Malo notes by that stage are gone because the yeast metabolizes them away.
Right.
And that's a key to this wine.
And is that the classic style of the Soave producers as well, or is that something that
Soave, it's funny. It comes from a very different place grape-wise,
right?
And it ends up in a similar place wine-wise. It's they're profoundly different grapes going out together.
Okay.
But they've still got that freshness. I think that's.
But they use seasoned oak.
Yeah, they use big oak.
Okay, which is going to lend that. There's a comment from Dr. Kong. There's a bit of phenolic grip he's observing, and are those tannins from the untoasted barrel? I would imagine so.
Yeah, we avoid skin phenolics very actively by whole bunch pressing the handpicked grapes, and also a press cut. We're vigorous about that press cut because, again, it affects the acidity. If you have the pressings in there, it drops the acidity. But the phenolics, yes, there is some oak phenolics. There's a funny kind of chalkiness comes to that Vineyard as well. It's not really phenolic so much as almost mineral, chalky, slaty thing that goes on.
Seems to be a function of texture and mid-palate component. That I love that chalkiness because it just adds another dimension to the wine. It just takes it another direction, which I think is wonderful.
And it's just a baby too. It's only been in bottle for.
Oh yeah,
so
I can't wait to see 6 and 12 months out to see how it emulates its maturation part. It's going to be very exciting. I'm really loving it. And sub $50, guys. That's really, really good value. So on to the Pinots. We're looking at the settlement Pinot first.
Sure. Yeah. So our Pinot philosophy is largely the same across all the wines that we do, and there's quite a few Pinots now because we could have easily, obviously just blended them together and produced one, but I think you'll see as we taste through them that they all have their own distinct personalities, and we just, again, like taking this terroir-driven approach and site-specific approach, we thought it'd be a real shame to blend those away because they are so different and deserve to be kind of bottled in their own right. So the settlement vineyard is in the Omaka Valley of the Southern Valleys. So here the soils are really different, and it's one of the reasons why Marlborough can do Pinot and Chardonnay as well as Sauvignon. So you've got, generally speaking, the Sauvignon is on the the fertile alluvial silt soils from the valley kind of floor area. And then up in the hills, to the south of the Wara River, we've got really old clay soils, which are low in nutrients and obviously so vigor moderating. And this vineyard's on a north-facing slope. It's actually slightly northwest facing, so it gets quite a lot of afternoon sun. It's quite exposed, very high density plantings, and so because of that, you get quite rich, quite dense fruit, very small berries and small bunches. And so we first started, the first vintage of this was 2019, and we're quite big fans of whole bunch fermentation. And we kind of thought, oh well, 50% seems about right for this because it is quite a dense fruited site. And we made it, and we thought actually just swallows the whole bunch. You couldn't see it at all. It was still this, big dense monster. And so from 2020, we thought, right, we're going to increase the whole bunch because the vintage was quite similar. It was a drought year, very dry conditions, naturally low yields. So we increased it to 2/3 whole bunch. And I think it's given a much more elegant expression, but you can still see that dense fruit and structure.
It's the warmest site we work from in Marlborough.
Yeah,
and I think you can taste it.
Yeah,
it's kind of darker in fruit profile.
What's interesting for me, I'm just a salesman end of the day. I'm not. Incidentally, guys, Sophie is the first MW in New Zealand. I forgot to mention that in the introduction. So she beat all the boys to it, which is a great achievement.
No, the South Island. The South Island. I can't beat Bob, unfortunately. Yeah, there's two boys that have come before me, but
that's all right. If you forgive me, I'll keep misquoting them. But what I was getting on about with this was, with 2/3 whole bunch, you're not seeing any massive tannic grip or any kind of overbearing elbows out kind of muscularity about the wine. There's still a fineness and a leanness to the wine that's really beautiful.
Well, it's interesting. We feel that by taking because the years weren't dissimilar. 19 and 20 were both drought years and low yielding years. But we felt by increasing that whole bunch, we kind of took the style, if you like, if you're relating to Old World, from Pommard to Volnay.
Got it. Yeah.
And we find Pommard quite grainy. There's people who really love that style, but the Volnay style is more aromatic and prettier. And I think we want tannin, but we don't want the tannin to be chewy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, but I think all this a marker Pinot is definitely in the bone spectrum.
Yeah.
Right. It's Côte de Bone. Whereas I think you've got the Escaroth, which we'll get onto, is more Côte de Nuit, very much so.
There's a question from Hao Sheng, whether you guys process your Central Otago fruit down there, or do you take it up to Marlborough?
We drive it up.
Bring it up.
It's a big road trip, Lou. But
I know, I just did it. It's very pretty though.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't trust those central winemakers down there.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? That's got to be what, 12 hours drive?
Yeah, it's about that. But it's like,
so it's about
my dad helped.
Yeah.
My dad lives down in Central, and he's got his HT license too. So
yeah,
he and Matt have a little road trip. And
in fact, I've got a good story about this. So I get down there and we harvest the grapes, we put them on the truck and trailer, and we drive back. Now, Sophie's dad, he likes his food and wine. He's been in the wine industry for a long time, and he prepared a massive bowl of chicken drumsticks that he cooked really well, smoked with some Pinot as well. It's beautiful. But I'm convinced that hundreds of years from now, some archaeologists are going to wonder why there's a trail of chicken bones from Bannockburn all the way up to Rapora.
In fact, they were wingless chickens because they only found bones.
They had lots of legs.
So are they cold compressed in transit, or how do you handle that?
Look, the key is you pick them and you bring them straight up.
Right. So just under a top and go.
Yeah, and we go. So it's 12 hours from picking to in the tank, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And the temperatures are
it's cool, exactly. At the time of year we're harvesting that, it's late autumn. And the ambient temperatures are probably somewhere between 5 and 10.
Yeah, especially down in Central Otago, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So there's a question about clones between these three vineyards. Maybe you can help us out with that.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, it's largely the same clone.
Yeah, so the settlement is 100% 777 Dijon clone, and the Una Volta, which is from Bannockburn, that's also 100% 777, and the Escaroth has mostly 777 and has a little bit of 115. So yeah, quite a nice comparison because you're seeing all the same clone largely, but what you're seeing is just vineyard difference.
So, Matt, is the Una Volta going to be 2, 3, 4 Volte? What's going on?
Well, Lou, that's a very good question. That's a very good question because it's my feeling because we do have an Una Volta we've done twice now.
Yes,
and
I noticed.
The Seconda Volta, but Sophie's no.
I think it's just got to be.
Lou, what do you think?
I prefer not to think. All right.
Volta. Keep them going.
Volta Volta.
Yeah.
I'm staying out of your marital issues. Sorry.
So, in terms of the location of the site on Felton Road, is it right at the bottom when you go right to that broader base of paddocks, vineyards, or where is it located?
You turn right across.
Turn right. Okay.
And turn right.
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah,
It is on Felton Road. It's actually right next door to the Calvert Vineyard.
Yes.
So Felton Road's Calvert. So it's just to the Queenstown side of that.
Yeah.
So you're next to Duncan Forsyth's latest little plantation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
That's a very fancy part of Central Otago. I'll be sure to mention that.
Very.
The real estate value has gone down since Duncan moved in, though.
Yeah, real estate prices are crashing.
Yeah, we know down there pretty well. I grew up down there.
Oh, okay.
We both did actually.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm still growing up probably, but
yeah. So we both grew up down there, and
you moved down there.
Yeah.
Have you guys been able to? I mean, one of the horrifying things that I saw on my last trip was the devastating effects of phylloxera down there, which obviously a lot of people didn't know they had, and it's going to bankrupt a few players down there. You guys have got that under control there on your bits of land?
Yeah, largely, it was a good discussion with you, Lou, when you came through, and I think Central has still a number of vines that are on roots, but obviously when phylloxera did really majorly hit New Zealand in the 80s, it was obviously devastating, and that prompted there's the vine pool, but also the move to rootstocks, American-based rootstocks, and so largely now probably 98% of all vineyards are there. But yeah, you'll find pockets in Central that are sort of on sandier soils that are a bit more impervious to phylloxera.
Yeah, they seem to be fine. The ones on sand seem to be going fine. But your stuff has already been grafted over, has it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the big issue with own roots vines is that you lose them and you got to replant just as they're getting vine age.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, it's the cheaper option and it's the easier option if you don't think you're going to get phylloxera, but they're always going to get phylloxera. It was here, it was going to get to there. There's no doubt.
Well, I remember, Rob and I were down at the old Olsen vineyard, which is now Terra Sancta, right? And they just discovered it, and the heartbreak it was causing. Also, the panic throughout the region, right? Because it wasn't going to stay inside the fence line.
No.
Yeah.
Well, look, I started in this industry in the early 90s, and that's just as phylloxera was sweeping through Marlborough. And there's only a couple thousand hectares back then, but they're all gone.
Yes.
And it moves fast. Once it takes hold, it makes those vines really sick, and the flavors go, the yield goes. It's only a matter of time, and you can't put it off.
Well, I'm glad it's been sorted out there. There's no sense of that anywhere else. I mean, Martinborough had a touch of it. Anywhere else in New Zealand, Marlborough at all?
Well, phylloxera's been dealt with.
Right. Okay,
So
good.
say we started on own roots in Marlborough, and when we went to grafted vines, it actually changed the location of what did well, because an own roots vine, from what I see and saw, it seems to be more vigorous. And I think the likes of Dylan's Point was regarded as, oh no, it'll be too vigorous there. And I think that's why the leaner soils, either stony or clay, were regarded as the best place in the early days, which is pre-phylloxera, on own roots vines. But then with replanting, things actually changed.
Yeah, well, I got to say, the Una Volta here in our household gets a real good hammering, I must say. We're very happy.
It's brilliant to put this next to settlement because, you know, obviously the color is way different. The Una Volta is much deeper. But the other takeaways for me are kind of the sense of spice and dark fruit, the volume's up. But the real win that makes me really love this Una Volta is the texture. There's a silky, glossy sort of cashmere component to the texture that I just love. So it's all Central Burt, a refined interpretation of so many other sites in Central can go overboard with that dark spice kind of component. Yeah, it's all kind of reined in one
100% agree.
sensible place.
You know, one of the keys to that is timing a harvest, Robert. I think particularly in the 90s and early 2000s, when they really kicked off in Otago, it was about size. People had this wonderful dark lush fruit and they wanted more of it, and how you make that bigger is you leave the fruit on the vine for longer, and once you start getting shrivel with Pinot Noir and most aromatic reds, actually you lose the floral notes. Right. And you get size and color and alcohol, but I know Jancis describes as dead fruit. And right. I know exactly what she means. You lose the life, the freshness. And so we avoid that like the plague.
Well, so that finally proves that bigger is not always better. So I might have to throw that T-shirt of mine away with that saying.
But it is always about size, Rob.
Well said, Lou.
Personally, I'd like to see Venti Volta in
Venti Volta. Okay.
Yeah.
Lou has spoken.
All right, noted. Yeah.
Let's have a look at that Escaroth now to finish up.
Right. Yeah, so the Escaroth, so now we're moving back up to Marlborough. And the Escaroth
very needy dog here.
Escaroth Vineyard is in the Taylor Pass. So it's east of the Omaka, about two valleys east.
Yeah, you've got Omaka, Brancott, Ben Morven, and then Taylor.
Yeah. And it's kind of it's quite a narrow little valley actually, and this site is a very steep kind of north facing slope, dry farmed as well. 24-year-old vines now, so quite well established for Marlborough. And I think you'll notice that I think this vineyard always delivers quite kind of a lovely umami sort of savouriness, as well as some lifted florals, and it's quite kind of savoury and sappy, and as we talked about, a bit more Côte de Nuit.
I think one of the reasons for that is the southern valleys. If you imagine them as fingers off the main Wairau Valley going south, and they have hills between them. All those valleys have got raised hills between them. And one of the things in the afternoon in summer that defines this region is the easterly. We always, or almost always, not always, but almost always get an easterly that comes up in the mid-afternoon and cools things down. Now, if you imagine the southern valleys, they have hills between them, and therefore they stop that easterly. Right. So the southern valleys get hotter than the main Wairau, because that gets the easterly. As you go further west in those valleys to the Omaka, you get less and less easterly. So it gets warmer and warmer in those warmer afternoons.
Right.
And you can taste that. I think you can taste the warmth, the hot afternoons, I think, in the settlement, whereas you've got that cool expression in the Escaroth.
Escaroth. It's definitely a whole different component. Obviously unfiltered, which is fabulous. I love the bite of both of those wines. I think it's really beautiful. The mouthfeel is fantastic. Really
Do you mind if I get a wee bit geeky here, Robert?
Please. Yeah, please.
Okay. Making Pinot Noir, one of the things you come up against if you're making a high-end Pinot Noir that you just got to deal with is Brettanomyces.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But Brettanomyces is a really nasty, I've heard it described as a junkyard dog of yeast, and it is. It's tough as nails. What it does, it's got an esterase enzyme that metabolizes the floral notes. It takes the reason for buying a Pinot away from the Pinot in our view. So you've got to deal with that. Now, the simple way to deal with that is filtration. But when you filter a Pinot, you also take away so much.
So much, yeah.
So we did a lot of research on how to deal with it now. And it's actually pretty simple. You've got to actually kill the Brett that's in the barrels. And you do that, you can relax. And all we use is a bit of steam. That's all you need to do.
Really, it's that simple.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Once you understand it, and you got to do the new barrels as well, doesn't take too long. And then you can relax, and you don't need a filter. And since we've been doing that, and the way we've been doing that, we haven't seen one iota of Brettanomyces.
It's fantastic.
And I'll just say, I wish the Burgundians would wrap their heads around that, because I'm tired of buying really expensive wine and having it go.
Got Brett in them. Yeah,
it's not that hard.
Yeah. Talking about,
I've never known a yeast infection to bring anything good. There's a question. There's a question here though. The current approach is monopole. Any plans to start blending like the Bergs?
Yeah, no, we really like. I mean, obviously,
we did it once. We did it once with the Gruner.
Oh yeah, well, that was a necessity.
And there were two very small parcels that we just couldn't make. But no, a philosophy of ours is sense of place. Personally, myself and Sophie as well, we discovered the magic of wine as you could actually taste a wine and have a crack at where it's from. And that's pretty cool. So the more defined that place is, the more interesting it is for us.
There's a question from Dr. Kong about, is that why you see more whole bunch stems for settlement due to riper fruit? Oh, okay. In terms of the riper fruits, could you give us an answer to that?
Well, yeah, there's multiple answers to that. Ripe fruit, and a lot of people talk about ripe stems. The only part that lignifies in the stem is that like 1 centimeter of the stalk itself. So it's not about ripe stems, but I know they're not wrong, but I think what they're saying isn't actually quite accurate. It's about the ripe fruit around those stems. If you've got ripe fruit flavors, they absorb the stems. If you've got greener fruit, then the greenness of the stems comes out more. So the key is you do need fruit ripe enough, but not shriveled. If you have ripe grapes as well, and they've got thick skins like we've got in settlement, there's another factor of the whole bunch. If you can imagine, if you've got grapes attached to the stems and you're mixing them in the tank, you can never extract as much from the skins attached to the stems. So you actually reduce the extraction from the skins with a whole bunch. So the color's a bit less and the skin tannin's less, but then you've got stem tannin. So you've got more complex tannin, but actually less of the skin tannin.
Got it. How's climate change influencing each sense of place? That's a good question, Chris.
Well, you're doing that.
Okay. Look, this is a really interesting thing for us to talk about, because it's something we've become more and more aware of with our work in Europe. So we work in Italy and France, and this year we had some incredibly low acidities in some of the wines we're working with, and I think the reason for that is continental climates seem to be affected more with climate change. They're getting really hot in those hot days in summer. Whereas I think the extreme maritime nature, particularly of Marlborough, means that is moderated to a very large extent by the water we've got close by.
Right.
So it's interesting what's happened. I think our harvest dates have come forward. There's no doubt about we're experiencing climate change. Don't get me wrong. It's come forward since I've been making wine, which is 32 years now here. It's come forward 3 full weeks, start and finish on average.
Easy.
3 weeks
That's
forward.
Yeah.
But the flavors and the acid balance seems remarkably similar.
Yeah, I think that Margaret River winemakers will share that sentiment, that climate change is having an impact, but maritime is a big saving grace. That also, and it's quite a left field opinion. I haven't heard it from any winemakers other than the Margaret River ones, who some of them were saying the vines are adapting. The Spanish would not have the same point of view. The Spanish are in shock and horror as to how they're talking about 6 weeks, Matt. So it's even more extreme, the last 10 years harvesting records. But certainly if you blessed as you are in Marlborough with so much water around you, it's going to certainly see you well in the longer run.
Yeah, certainly something we've just become aware of, really, as we've stopped and thought about it.
Mm.
Yeah, and then having observed what's just the last few vintages in Europe, and it is quite frightening what they're having to deal with in those continental areas.
I saw the BBC News this morning was running a top line story about winemaking in Denmark. So there you go.
Well,
Yeah.
that's ambitious.
And the other thing that we're also prone to with with a changing climate is just an increased frequency of tropical cyclones that make it down to us with still the level of power that they wouldn't normally have. So we had the bad one in 23, which was
Just
missed Marlborough, but it obviously made significant landfall on the east coast of the North Island and caused a lot of damage. But so that's kind of the real risk I think for
that's the key. The cyclones have more energy, so they get further south before they lose the energy. So
that will have an increasing impact on what you guys are doing.
Well, it's interesting. In 2017 we had 2 affected us during harvest, and in 2018 we had 1, and it had never happened before. It had never happened before. We thought, holy heck, is this the new norm? Yeah. And that was the last one we had. So,
and was that in the time of La Nina or not? I know La Nina's heading back now.
Yeah. So La Nina is when we get the cyclone risks. So El Nino is great, it's dry, drought.
That might answer. Any more questions from anyone to the floor? A bit of marketing sparkle. If you email me, don't order online, but email me your order for tonight. I can give you 10% discount off the top of any orders that you do. We can't do that online because of the loyalty club discounts and what have you. So bear that in mind. Hopefully you'll find an order form, or if not, there's a tasting mat. I see the guys have laminated it, which is very kind of them. So you can reuse it the next time. And Sophie and Matt, it's getting late for you. When next you're flying somewhere else and you can persuade yourself to stop in Singapore, please come and have some dinner with us.
Yeah, absolutely. We like Singapore. It's a fun city.
All right. We'll do that. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Sleep tight.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Okay.